baby wouldn't let go. Two tiny fists had grabbed onto the lapel of Jihuk's jacket, and no matter what anyone did, the child would not release. Not when his bodyguard Tyson tried to gently pry her away. Not when the housekeeper clapped and made funny faces. Not even when her own mother rushed forward, eyes wide with terror, whispering frantic apologies. "I'm so sorry, sir. She never does this. I don't know why—" Jihuk held up one hand, and the room went silent like a graveyard. He was not a man people interrupted. He ran the Gyeomjongpa, the most feared syndicate on the eastern coast. His name could empty a restaurant. His stare could end a negotiation. Grown men stood when he entered a room, and right now, a 8-month-old baby girl was drooling on his collar. "What is her name?" he asked. His voice was calm, the dangerous kind of calm, the kind his men could never read. The maid, young, no older than 23, had swallowed hard. Her uniform was too big. Her hands shook at her sides. She had deep brown skin and large, careful eyes that kept darting between his face and the baby. "Iris," she whispered in a cracking tone. "Her name is Iris." Jihuk gazed down at the child, and Iris looked up at him. She had the roundest cheeks he'd ever seen, big, dark eyes, completely unafraid. Which was strange, because every other person in this mansion was terrified of him right now. She gurgled. She kicked her little legs. Then she laid her head against his chest and closed her eyes. Tyson stepped back. His expression said, "I have absolutely no training for this." Jihuk's second in command, Pilsu, leaned in from the doorway. "Should I remove the child, sir?" "No." The word landed like a stone. He stared at the maid, like really pierced his eyes into her soul. She'd been working in this house for 11 days. Background check. Clean. 3 previous jobs in private homes on the coast. Country of origin. A small nation in the southeast part of the African continent. "What is your name?" he asked. "Viviana, sir." "And the baby? You bring her to work?" "The agency said it was allowed, sir. I keep her in the staff quarters. She's never come out before. I don't know how she got through the—" "Stop apologizing." She stopped. Jihuk looked at Iris again. The baby was completely asleep. Her tiny fingers were locked onto his jacket like she'd decided this was her new home. Something shifted behind his ribs. He didn't know what it was. No, he didn't like not knowing things. "Go back to work," he told Viviana. "I'll hold her until she wakes." "Sir?" "Did I stutter?" "No, sir. You're busy?" "Yes. And yet," he glanced down, "she seems comfortable." Viviana bowed, quickly, clumsily, and hurried out. Tyson waited until her footsteps disappeared. "Boss, you have a meeting in 40 minutes with Director Yoon about the port situation." "Cancel it." Tyson's eyebrows nearly left his face. "Cancel. The meeting we've been setting up for 3 weeks. Reschedule." In 8 years of service, Tyson had never seen this man cancel a business meeting. Not for illness, not for injury, not even for the time someone drove a car through the front gate. But a baby drools on his jacket, and the whole schedule is out the window. He bowed and left without another word. Viviana scrubbed the kitchen counter so hard her knuckles ached. Her baby had somehow escaped the portable crib, navigated the hallway, and ended up in the private study of the most dangerous man in the province. "You look like you've seen a ghost," said a voice behind her. Daisy, the cook, stout, silver-streaked hair, the only person in the household who wasn't visibly terrified of their employer. "Iris got into his study," Viviana whispered. She grabbed onto him. She fell asleep. Daisy set her ladle down. "And you're still alive?" "He told me to go back to work. He said he'd hold her." Silence. "Well," Daisy said, "that's new. Is he going to fire me? If he was going to fire you, he would have. And here? He's strict, quiet, and fair. I've worked for him 4 years. He's never shouted at the staff. He pays on time. What he asks about my arthritis. Viviana stared. Close your mouth, girl. You'll catch flies. 45 minutes later, Tyson appeared at the kitchen door. The boss says the baby is awake. She's making sounds he interprets as asking for you. Viviana followed him through the mansion and into the study. Jihuk was standing by the window. Iris was in his arms, wide awake, babbling happily, patting his cheek with one chubby hand. And Jihuk, feared leader of the Jeomjong-pa, was letting her. She's hungry, he said when Viviana entered. How do you know? She tried to eat my watch. Something unexpected bubbled up in Viviana's chest. She almost laughed. She caught it just in time, but something in her expression must have shown because Ji-hyuk's eyes flickered. Take her, he said. And the staff quarters are cold. Cool, I'll have the heating fixed tonight. Viviana took Iris carefully. The baby fussed, reaching back toward Jihuk before settling. Thank you, sir. For everything. For not. I told you to stop apologizing. That wasn't an apology. That was a thank you. He looked at her. A real look. Like he was reading a page she hadn't shown anyone. You're welcome, he said. The heating was fixed by 8 p.m. A brand new wooden crib with a padded mattress appeared in Viviana's room by 9 p.m. And at midnight, her phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. The child should have blankets that fit the crib. 3rd floor linen closet. Help yourself. No name. No signature. She didn't need one. She found the linen closet. The blankets inside were the softest she'd ever touched. She took 2, wrapped Iris in one, held the other against her own cheek, and stood in the dark hallway of a mansion that belonged to a man she barely knew. And she cried. Not from fear. From hope. By the end of the first week, it was a pattern. Every morning, Iris found her way to the study. Nobody could figure out how. Doors would be closed, hallways would be empty, and yet, there she'd be. On the carpet, chewing on a new toy that had appeared overnight, looking up at Jihuk like he was the most interesting person alive. Once, Viviana walked in and found him reading a financial report aloud to the baby. She likes numbers, he said without looking up. She's 8 months old. And yet she stopped fussing when I started reading. Iris was indeed calm, staring up at him with rapt attention, as though quarterly earnings were the most fascinating thing she'd ever heard. Okay, Viviana said. Fair. Jihuk almost smiled, just the corner of his mouth, barely a twitch, gone before it fully formed. But Viviana saw it. She left the room before her face could betray her. On the 9th day, everything changed. Viviana was in the kitchen when shouting erupted from the front of the house. Real shouting. Angry. Loud. She moved toward the sound. Daisy caught her arm. Don't. But then, a baby crying. She pulled free and ran. The front hall was in chaos. 4 men she didn't recognize stood just inside the entrance. Tyson and Pilsu blocked their path, and at the top of the staircase, Jihuk. Iris was in his arms, fussing from the noise. One of the strangers, a tall man with a scar across his eyebrow, pointed up at Jihuk. Fa, you think you can cut us out of the port deal? You're in my house, Jihuk said. Not loud, barely above a conversation, but every person in the room went still. You walked in uninvited, and you raised your voices in front of a child. He paused. Leave. You have 30 seconds. The scarred man looked at his companions. A calculation passed between them. Then he turned and walked out. Jihuk came down the stairs. He shifted Iris gently and made a low sound, almost like humming, but deeper, a vibration in his chest. The baby quieted. She grabbed his collar. She sniffled once and settled. He saw Viviana at the edge of the hall. She came to me, he said. When the shouting started, She came to me instead of hiding. Viviana's vision blurred. She trusts you. She shouldn't. But she does. Something in his eyes looked almost like pain. Take her, he said, his voice rough. Keep her in the staff wing. I have things to deal with. Their hands touched during the exchange. Just a second. Just the briefest brush. They both pretended it didn't happen. 3 days later, a woman arrived at the mansion. She was stunning. Tall, immaculate, with perfectly styled hair and clothes that belonged on a magazine cover. She stepped out of a silver car and walked to the front door like she owned the place. Viviana was polishing the banister when their eyes met. The woman looked at her the way someone looks at a smudge on a window. "Where is Jihuk?" she asked, not to Viviana, just into the air. Tyson appeared. "Miss Yoonji, we weren't expecting you." "I don't need an appointment to see my fiancé." The word hit Viviana like a wall. Fiancé. She kept polishing. Her hand didn't stop. But inside her chest, something cracked. Quietly. Cleanly. Of course he had someone. Someone beautiful and elegant, who arrived in silver cars and said fiancé like it was a title she'd earned. Yoonji swept past without another glance. Daisy appeared beside Viviana a moment later, pretending to dust. "That is Baek Yoonji, daughter of Baek Song-won. Old money. The engagement was arranged 2 years ago. Political, not personal." "It's none of my business," Viviana said. Daisy gave her a look, the kind that said, "I have eyes, girl." But she didn't say it out loud. That afternoon, Viviana turned a corner and found herself face to face with Yoonji. The woman looked her up and down, slowly, thoroughly. "You're the new maid." "Yes, ma'am. I hear my fiancé has been spending time with your child." The air turned cold. "Let me give you some advice," Yoonji said. "Whatever you think is happening, it isn't. He gets curious about new things. Then he gets bored. That's how men like him are built." She smoothed her sleeve. "Don't confuse curiosity for something more." She walked away. Viviana stood in the hallway. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear. That night, at 11:47 p.m., a knock came at the staff room door. Jihuk stood in the hallway, sleeves rolled, looking like a man who hadn't slept in a long time. "I wanted to explain about Yoonji," he said. "You don't owe me an explanation, sir." "Stop calling me sir." "What should I call you?" "Jihuk." Heavy silence. "No, the engagement is an arrangement," he said. "Between families. For business. I didn't choose it." He stopped. Started again. "Whatever Yoonji told you, it doesn't change anything. Iris is welcome in my study. You are welcome in this house." Viviana leaned against the doorframe. The late hour made her braver than she should have been. "Why do you care? About a maid's baby? About any of this?" He was quiet for a long time. "Because she looked at me like I was a person, not a name. Not a threat." He paused. "No one has looked at me like that in a very long time." "Good night, Viviana," he said. "Good night, Jihuk." He walked away. His footsteps faded into silence, leaving nothing but the sound of Iris breathing and the reckless drumbeat of Viviana's own heart. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It happened on a Tuesday. Pilsu appeared in the laundry room doorway, his face tight with urgency. "You need to come with me. Now. Please." The please scared her. Men like Pilsu didn't say please unless something was seriously wrong. He led her to the East Wing, a part of the mansion she'd never entered. Jihuk was standing at the head of a long table, Tyson beside him. Both looked like men bracing for an earthquake. "Sit down," Jihuk said. She sat. "I received a call from a man named Jang Woo-shik. He runs a network, trafficking, document forgery, labor exploitation. He is not someone I work with. He is someone I've actively worked against. Jihyuk's voice was controlled, but underneath it, a faint, furious tremor. He knows about you. He knows about Iris. The room tilted. He says your work permit was processed through one of his front companies. He claims you owe a debt. That's not true! Viviana was on her feet. I went through a legitimate agency. I paid. I believe you. But he has forged paperwork that would hold up long enough to cause serious problems. And he wants something from me in exchange for making it disappear. What? Access to the port. He wants to use my territory to move people. Families he recruits with false promises and then traps. I've blocked him for 3 years. A pause. You are his leverage. Silence. If you say no, Viviana whispered, what happens to me? He reports you. Your visa gets pulled. You're deported within weeks. And if you say yes, a long, terrible moment. Then I become the thing I swore I'd never become. The next 48 hours were a blur. Jihuk brought in lawyers, investigators, a document specialist named Dr. Yeon-hee. The mansion became a hive of activity. Through it all, Jihuk gave Viviana one instruction. Stay inside. Keep Iris close. On the second night, she was in the kitchen feeding Iris when Jihuk walked in. Exhausted. His shirt untucked, his hair disheveled. He sat across from her and watched Iris drink her bottle. I'm not going to let him take you, he said. I don't care what it costs. He's not going to use you as a bargaining chip. Why? Why risk everything for a maid and her baby? Stop calling yourself that. It's what you do, not what you are. He leaned forward. You crossed an ocean alone with an infant because you believed something better was waiting. You work harder than anyone in this house, and you've never once looked at me with fear. A pause. Everyone looks at me with fear, Viviana. Everyone. Except you and your daughter. A tear slid down her cheek. Don't cry, he said. But his voice cracked on the word, just barely, just enough. And she realized that this powerful, untouchable man was scared. Not for himself. For her. 2 days later, Viviana's phone rang, and it was from an unfamiliar number. My name is Kylan, the voice said. I'm with the African Workers' Coalition. We've been investigating Jang Woo-shik for 2 years. Your name came up in his files. Viviana's blood turned cold. I'm not with Woo-shik, Kylan continued. I'm against him, and I have information your employer might want. Proof that his documents are forged. Digital signatures, timestamps, a trail leading straight back to his operation. The kind of evidence that would make any investigation airtight. Why tell me? Why not go to the police? A tired laugh. Because the police don't listen to people like us, Viviana, but they listen to men like Shin Ji-hyuk. How do I know I can trust you? You don't. But if Woo-shik wins, who suffers? Not the rich, the workers, the mothers who crossed oceans with their babies. He gave her a time and a place, the Yonghwa Tea House, noon tomorrow, and hung up. Viviana went straight to Jihuk. She told him everything. 11 seconds of silence. Then, it could be a trap. I know. You want to go anyway. If those documents are real, they could end this. Not just for me, for everyone Woo-shik has trapped. You're asking me to trust a stranger. I'm asking you to trust me. The words sat between them. He picked up his phone. Tyson. Tomorrow. Noon. The Yonghwa Tea House. Full detail. The tea house was narrow, wedged between a fish market and a tailor's shop. Viviana went in alone. She'd convinced Ji-hyuk to wait outside after what Tyson later called the most terrifying negotiation I've ever witnessed. Kylan was in the back, younger than expected, late 20s, shaved head, wire-rimmed glasses. He looked more like a professor than an activist. He slid a brown envelope across the table. Inside, immigration forms, processing records, digital receipts. A clear trail connecting Wushik's companies to dozens of forged permits, including hers. Her real application side by side with a doctored version. "We have someone inside his operation," Kailan explained. "A former victim who went back in to collect evidence. That's incredibly dangerous. Yes, it is." She brought Jihuk in. When he entered the tea house like a storm that had decided to be polite. The other customers suddenly found reasons to leave. "3 questions," Jihuk said. "Is your insider safe?" "As safe as possible." "How many people has Wushik trapped?" "At least 148 in 4 years." "If I combine my evidence with yours, is it enough to bring his entire network down?" Kailan spread the documents. "Yes." Jihuk read every page. Then, "The meeting with Commissioner Huang is tonight. I want you there." "Me? At a private meeting with the commissioner?" "You have the insider. You have the detailed records. I'm offering you a seat at the table. Take it." Kailan extended his hand. Jihuk shook it. An alliance formed. Not in a boardroom or a back alley, but in a tea house that smelled like barley. No, Commissioner Huang was silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and gave them 45 minutes. Jihuk presented his 3 years of compiled intelligence, trafficking routes, safe houses, networks. Kailan presented the forged documents and insider testimony. Huang listened, asked precise questions, and made notes. "This is substantial," Huang said at the end. "It's enough," Jihuk replied. "It's enough to start. Dismantling a network like this takes months." "Then start." Huang studied him. "Why now, Shin? You've sat on this for 3 years." Jihuk didn't look at Viviana, but she saw his fingers curl against the table, just barely. "Someone reminded me that information isn't useful unless you use it." Huang nodded. 82 hours. Don't do anything dramatic." "I never do anything dramatic." "You once drove a car through a warehouse wall. That was practical." On the drive home, Viviana said, "You told him you want to get out. Out of everything." "Yes. What would you do?" "I don't know. I've been doing this since I was 19. My father died, and I inherited a kingdom I never wanted. I was supposed to be an architect." "An architect?" "I wanted to build things, design spaces where people felt safe." A pause. "Instead, I inherited a world where safety was something you took from others." Viviana felt something crack, not from pain, but from recognition. The weight of a life you didn't choose. "I came here because my village was dying," she said softly. "The jobs were gone. My mother got sick. After she passed, there was nothing left. Someone told me about agencies that could get me work overseas." She paused. "Iris's father, Troy. He came through one of Wushik's operations. He didn't know. When he found out his contract was fake, he tried to run." Her voice cracked. "He didn't make it. He disappeared 8 months before Iris was born. I don't know where he is." A hand covered hers. Jihuk's, strong, scarred, steady, not squeezing, just there. "We'll find him," he said. "If he's alive, we'll find him. You can't promise that. Watch me." Their palms rested together on the seat between them, not holding tight, just there. And it felt like the beginning of something neither had the courage to name. 2 days later, Yoonji's father called. The entire mansion heard Jihuk's response. "I won't." Then, "I don't care about the merger." Then, "Break it." Then, "Good." 3 minutes. He found Viviana in the kitchen. "The engagement is off. Yoonji's father gave me an ultimatum. I chose dissolution. You just ended an arrangement between families. My decision." "Why are you telling me?" "Because you'd hear about it anyway, and I'd rather you hear it from me." "That's the only reason?" He held her gaze. The kitchen was small. The air was charged. "No," he said. "That's not the only reason." Daisy walked in from the pantry, took one look at them, said, "I suddenly need something from the other kitchen," set down her rice, and walked right back out. The night before the raids, Kylan called Viviana. "They found someone." His voice was careful, the kind of careful people use when holding something fragile. "In Wushik's worker files, a man who matches the description you gave. He's in a labor camp on the northern coast. Agriculture. Off the books." "Is it Troy?" "The name, the country, the timeline. It all matches." "Viviana, he's alive." Her knees buckled. She caught herself on the bed frame. "Does Jihuk know?" she whispered. "Not yet. I called you first, because you deserve to decide what happens next." She closed her eyes. Relief, rage, grief, hope, all spinning together. And underneath, what does this mean for everything happening between me and Jihuk? "Give me tonight," she said. She didn't sleep. At 6 a.m., she went to the study. She told him everything. When she finished, the clock on the wall filled the silence. Tick, and tick-tock-tick, Jihuk walked to the window. "You should have told me last night." I needed time. To think about what? How to say it without making it sound like everything between us doesn't matter. He turned. His mask was on, that stone face. But his eyes were open, raw. "Does it matter?" he asked. "Everything between us?" "You know it does." "Then say it." "You're not the only one, Jihuk. You know you're not." Something in his face unlocked, a door opening, a knot loosening. He crossed the room, crouched in front of her so they were eye to eye, and said, "We're going to get him out." "What?" "Troy. We're adding the camp to Commissioner Huang's raids. After everything. After what I just told you." "After you told me the truth?" "Viviana, whatever happens between you and Troy, none of that changes what I've done or why. I didn't protect you to keep you." He paused. "And that child deserves to know her father." She cried. Right there, no stopping it. "Thank you," she whispered. He stood. "Call Kylan. Tell him to bring everything on that camp. We move this week." Dawn. Commissioner Huang's teams hit 3 locations simultaneously. Wushik's port operation, his forgery center, and the corrupt immigration official. By 6:30 a.m., the urban network was in chaos. At 7:15 a.m., the team for the northern camp departed. Jihuk was with them. Viviana had wanted to go. Jihuk said no. They argued. She conceded only after he promised to call the moment they had confirmation. "If you get hurt," she'd said, "I will never forgive you." Noted. Iris, on Daisy's hip, waved at the closing door and said something that sounded like "dough." Daisy looked at the baby. "Oh, did she just... She's been trying to say his name for a week." The longest hours of her life. 10:22 a.m. Kylan texted, "En route, no problems." 11:46 a.m. Kylan called. "We're in. 43 workers, men and women. Some have been here for years." His voice cracked. "Viviana, he's here, he's alive, thin and tired, and he didn't believe it when they told him it was over. But he's here." Viviana caught herself on Jihyuk's desk, the desk where he'd read financial reports to her daughter, where he'd told her to stop apologizing, where he'd looked at her like she was the first real thing he'd seen in years. She cried with her whole body. Great, gasping sobs that shook her from the inside. Months of fear, years of grief, all pouring out. When it was done, she picked up Iris. "Your daddy's coming home. Aunt, sweet girl." They brought Troy to the mansion. Viviana stood in the entrance hall at 4 p.m., holding Iris. The car pulled up. The door opened. Thinner than she remembered. Cheekbones sharp beneath his skin. Borrowed clothes too big on his frame. But his eyes were the same. Dark, deep, warm. He saw her. His step faltered. "Viviana, it's me, Troy." His eyes dropped to the baby. This is Iris, your daughter." He made a sound, not a word, the kind that lives beneath language, where grief and joy are the same thing. His hand came up, trembling, and hovered near Iris's cheek. Iris studied this stranger with total attention. Then she reached out and grabbed his finger. Troy sank to his knees, tears on the stone floor. I'm sorry I wasn't there." Viviana knelt beside him, one arm around his shoulders, my Iris between them. A family reunited in the home of a man who'd made it possible. From the East Wing doorway, Jihuk watched. He watched the woman he'd started to love hold the man she'd once loved, with the child they both loved between them. He watched the reunion he'd fought to create, and he felt, simultaneously, the deepest satisfaction and the sharpest ache of his entire life. Tyson appeared at his elbow. "Boss, don't." He turned and walked to his study and closed the door. Troy healed. Slowly. He was quiet, polite, grateful. He was good with Iris. The baby took to him with a child's open-hearted acceptance. But Viviana noticed things. She noticed Iris, sometimes, crawling toward the door instead of staying in Troy's arms, toward the hallway, toward the study. She noticed that Iris's particular fussing sound at night, the reaching, calling sound, was different from hungry or tired. It was the sound she made when she wanted Jihuk. And she noticed that Jihuk, since Troy arrived, had disappeared. Not physically. She could hear him behind closed doors, managing the fallout. Wu Shik arrested, territory reshuffling, national news coverage. But he wasn't in the kitchen at midnight, wasn't reading reports on the study floor, wasn't appearing in doorways. He was giving her space. She hated it. On the 5th day, she found him in the garden, by the pond, hands in pockets. "You've been avoiding me," she said. "I've been busy. Busy and avoiding me. Not mutually exclusive." Silence. "I'm trying to do the right thing," he said, back still turned. "I told you I wouldn't stand in the way. But if I look at you and your daughter, and the father she deserves, I don't know if I can keep that promise." He turned. "I am not a good man, Viviana. Don't tell me what you are." The words came out sharper than she intended, but she didn't take them back. "You did this before, with Yoonji. You decided what I deserved without asking me. She called me staff. You called yourself not good enough. Everyone keeps deciding things about me, and nobody asks." She stepped forward. "So here's what I've decided. Not what you decided. Not Yoonji. Me." He was looking at her with something completely unguarded, open, terrified. "Troy is Iris's father. That will never change. He loves her, and she deserves to know him. I will always make sure of that. I know. I'm not finished. Another step. Troy and I loved each other. Past tense. We talked about it. Honestly. He told me surviving what he survived changed him. He needs time to heal before he can be a partner to anyone." Jihuk was very still. "And I have feelings for a man who held my daughter when she was frightened, who read her financial reports like stories, who tore apart his own kingdom to protect two people he had no obligation to protect." Her voice wavered, but held. "I'm done being brave about everything except this." The air hummed. "So here it is. Troy will be Iris's father. That's sacred. But this, you and me, is also real. And I'm not pretending it isn't because the timing is complicated." Jihuk let out a long, shaking breath. "You're sure?" he said. "I've never been more sure of anything. It won't be easy. I crossed an ocean with a baby. I can handle complicated." And finally, that twitch became a real smile. Small, lopsided, completely genuine. "Okay," he said. "Okay? After all the midnight kitchen speeches, I pour my heart out and you say okay. I'm a crime lord, not a poet. She laughed. It echoed off the trees and the pond, and somewhere inside, Daisy heard it through a window, put her hand over her heart, and said to no one, "Finally." The breakthrough between Troy and Jihuk came on a rainy Tuesday. Troy knocked on the study door. "I wanted to thank you, not just for the rescue, for everything you've done for Viviana and Iris, for being there when I couldn't." Jihuk looked up. "You don't need to thank me. I do. And I know you care about them. I want you to know I'm grateful, not threatened. That child loves you. You were her first protector, well, the first person who made her feel safe." Silence, thick but not heavy. Two men reaching across a gap that could have been a canyon. "I'm not going to pretend that isn't important," Troy continued. "I'm her father. But you're something too. Something I don't have a name for, and she needs both." Jihuk picked up a children's book from his desk, one of Iris's favorites, and held it out. "She likes it when you do the voices, especially the lion." Troy took the book, looked at the cartoon lion on the cover, and laughed. Warm, full, genuine. "I'll keep that in mind." 6 months later. The mansion had changed. The tension, that electric hum that had always lived in the walls, was gone. In its place was something warmer, more alive. Toys on the study floor. See building blocks and a set of wooden animals Jihuk had carved himself. 18 creatures of varying quality. The best being a giraffe, the worst being a supposed cat that looked like a potato. Sounds in the hallways. Iris's laughter at 14 months, loud and infectious. Daisy singing. Troy reading aloud upstairs. Kylan on the phone from the new office Jihuk had funded. Jihuk had begun dismantling the Gyeomjongpa's illegal operations, route by route, carefully, redirecting the infrastructure toward legitimate shipping and real estate. "What will you do with the pieces?" Pilsu asked. "Build something new." "You really are an architect." "I've always been an architect. I was just given the wrong building." Viviana had stopped wearing the maid's uniform months ago, and she was taking business administration classes, funded by a scholarship Jihuk refused to take credit for. She'd moved to the second floor, into rooms overlooking the garden. They were not in a rush, she and Jihuk. The feelings between them unfolded at their own pace, without pressure. They were building something, slowly, carefully, like an architect designing a home meant to last. On an autumn Sunday, Viviana found Jihuk on the garden bench, Iris in his lap. "Doh," Iris said, patting his face. "Yes. Doh." She pointed at a fish. "That's a fish." "Duh." "She's committed," Viviana said, sitting beside them. Troy appeared carrying a tray of tea. Kylan's on the phone. "They want you to testify before the anti-trafficking committee." "Me?" Apparently, a reformed syndicate boss who dismantled a trafficking network is compelling to lawmakers. "I'm not reformed. I'm redirected." "Tell that to the committee." Jihuk looked at Viviana. She shrugged. "You did say you wanted to build things? Fine, but I'm not wearing a tie." "You'll wear a tie," Viviana and Troy said simultaneously. Iris clapped. "Duh." That evening, Viviana stood in the garden alone. Stars appeared. Faint, distant, persistent. She thought about the journey, the village she'd left, the mother she'd lost, the ocean she'd crossed, the mansion she'd entered as a maid with a baby, and a heart full of fear. She thought about Iris crawling into a stranger's study and grabbing his jacket and refusing to let go. At the moment that changed everything, a baby's instinct wiser than anything any adult could have planned. She thought about Troy. Found. Freed. Healing. Turning his pain into purpose. She thought about Jihuk. Built for shadows. learning to stand in light, given a kingdom of fear, rebuilding it into something worthy, and herself, called staff, maid, foreigner, a woman who'd stood in a dark hallway holding borrowed blankets and crying from hope. Hope that had not betrayed her. Footsteps on stone. Jihuk. Of course. He stood beside her. Not too close, but close enough. "Iris is asleep," he said. "Troy read the Lion book? Twice. She demanded an encore. She gets that from you." "Gets what?" "The ability to make people do things twice without asking." That real smile, the one that had taken weeks to coax out, and now came more easily, like a flower remembering how to bloom. They stood together under the trees his mother had planted, in the quiet hum of a house that had become something none of them expected. A home. Not perfect. Not simple. Full of complications and unanswered questions, and a future still unfolding. But real. Warm. Alive. The next morning, Iris crawled across the study floor. Jihuk was on a call. Legitimate business now. Shipping contracts and development permits. He saw her coming and scooped her up with one arm without breaking stride. She grabbed his collar. She always grabbed his collar. He kept talking. She kept holding on. And in the kitchen, Viviana poured her tea, listened to the low murmur of his voice through the house, and felt, fully, finally, the thing she'd been building toward since the night she stood in a dark hallway with blankets that smelled like hope. Home. She was home. 3 months after the testimony, everything was supposed to be getting easier. The Jeomjong-pa's legal transition was on track. Woo-shik was awaiting trial. Troy had started working with a regional labor rights office. Iris was walking, running, really, and her vocabulary had expanded to include do, mama, dada, and no, which she used more than all the others combined. Then the letter arrived. It came in a plain white envelope, no return address, slipped under the mansion's front gate sometime before dawn. Tyson found it during his morning perimeter check and brought it straight to Jihuk. Viviana was in the kitchen with Daisy when she heard the study door close. Hard, but not a slam. Jihuk didn't slam doors, but harder than normal. The kind of close that said, "Something is very wrong." She found him standing behind his desk, holding a single sheet of paper, his face completely blank. "What is it?" she asked. He handed it to her. The letter was typed, no signature, 3 lines. "You gave our secrets to the government. You broke the code. The council has voted. You have 30 days. Viviana read it twice. 30 days until what? Until the Jeomjong-pa is no longer mine. I don't understand. There's a council, Jihuk said. His voice was flat, the voice he used when emotions were too dangerous to let through. 5 families who have been allied with the Jeomjong-pa for decades. When my father ran things, they operated as partners. When I took over, I kept the alliance because I had no choice. They've tolerated my leadership because I was effective and because I never crossed certain lines. And now? Cooperating with Commissioner Huang, giving evidence to the government that crossed every line that exists. In their world, what I did is the ultimate betrayal. It doesn't matter that it was against Woo-shik. It doesn't matter that it was right. I talked to the authorities. That's all they see. Viviana set the letter down. So in 30 days, they install new leadership, someone they control, and he paused. I lose everything. The mansion, the businesses, even the legitimate ones. The protection that keeps everyone in this house safe. Everyone meaning you, Iris, Troy, Daisy, the staff, everyone. The kitchen suddenly felt very cold. An emergency meeting was called that afternoon. Tyson, Pilsu, Dr. Yeon-hee, and Kylan gathered in the conference room. Jihuk laid out the situation in precise clinical terms. The council structure, their resources, what a leadership change would mean. Can you fight it? Kailan asked. Physically? Yes, but that means open conflict, and open conflict puts everyone around me at risk. Can you negotiate? The council doesn't negotiate. They vote, and the vote is final. That's how it's always worked. Then what are the options? Tyson asked. Jihuk was quiet for a long moment. Then, one option. I dissolve the Jeomjongpa entirely. Not transition. Dissolution. I break it apart, distribute the legitimate assets into independent companies, and walk away. If there's no organization left, there's nothing for the council to take over. Pilsu leaned forward. Boss, that's decades of infrastructure. Your father's entire legacy. My father's legacy was a cage, Jihuk said calmly. I've been trying to leave it for years. This is just accelerated. And the council? They won't just accept that. They'll be furious. But if there's no throne, there's nothing to seize. They can rage all they want. You can't take over an organization that no longer exists. Silence fell across the table. It's insane, Pilsu said. Probably. It could work, Tyson said. Probably. Kailan looked at Jihuk with the expression he always wore when Jihuk did something that surprised him, which, after months of working together, still happened regularly. You'd really burn it all down? I'd rather burn it down myself than let someone else use it to hurt the people I care about. His eyes didn't move to Viviana, who was standing at the back of the room. They didn't need to. Everyone knew who he meant. The next 2 weeks were chaos. Jihuk worked around the clock. Lawyers filed incorporation documents for 8 new independent businesses, shipping, real estate, logistics, each structured to stand alone, with no ties to the old syndicate. Assets were transferred, accounts were separated, contracts were renegotiated. Pilsu managed the personnel, dozens of people who had worked for the Jeomjeongpa for years, each needing new employment agreements under the legitimate companies. Some resisted. Some didn't understand. A few threatened to go to the council themselves. Jihuk handled each case personally. Date, you have 2 choices, he told a man named Seungho, who had been with the organization for 12 years and was loudly unhappy about the changes. You can join the new shipping company at the same salary, with legal protections and benefits. Or you can walk out that door and find someone else to work for. But you will not, and I need you to hear this clearly. You will not go to the council. Because if you do, you won't be hurting me. You'll be hurting the 43 workers we pulled out of Wushik's camp. You'll be hurting the families who are finally safe. And I don't think that's who you are. Seungho stared at him for a long time. Then he signed the new contract. On day 19, the council made their move early. Viviana was giving Iris her afternoon snack when Tyson burst into the kitchen. And Tyson never burst anywhere. He was the calmest man she'd ever met. Seeing him rattled was like watching a mountain tremble. We need to go. Now. What happened? The council sent people. They're at the front gate. 12 men. They're demanding entry. Viviana scooped up Iris. Where's Jihuk? Study. He's not leaving. What do you mean he's not? He told me to get you, Iris, Troy, and Daisy to the secondary safe house. He's staying to deal with this. Alone? Not alone. Pilsu's with him. And he's called Commissioner Huang. Viviana's legs wanted to move. Wanted to grab her daughter and run, the way instinct screamed at her to do. But something stronger held her in place. Take Iris to Daisy, she told Tyson. Viviana, take her. Now. She handed over the baby. Iris immediately started fussing, reaching back. And Viviana turned and walked toward the front of the house. She found Jihuk in the entrance hall. He was standing exactly where he'd stood months ago when the scarred man had come about the port deal, at the center of the room, perfectly composed, perfectly still. Pilsu was to his right. 2 of their security team flanked the door. Through the tall windows, Viviana could see figures at the gate. Dark coats, waiting. "I told Tyson to get you out," Jihuk said without turning. "I know. You're not leaving." "No." "Viviana." Now he turned. His face was taut. "This isn't. Don't tell me this isn't my fight. Everything that's happened. The raids, the evidence, Wushik, the dissolution. It started because your daughter grabbed your jacket." He blinked. She hadn't meant to say it like that. She hadn't planned the words. But they came out, and they were true. Iris was his daughter too, in every way that mattered, and they both knew it. Something shifted in his expression. The tautness didn't leave, but beneath it, something warmer broke through, like sunlight through a crack in stone. "Stay behind me," he said. "I'll stay beside you." He looked at her. She looked at him. "Fine," he said. He opened the front door. The man at the gate was someone Jihuk recognized. His name was Kang Yushin, the eldest son of the Kang family, one of the 5 council clans. He was tall, thin, with a face that looked like it had been designed for disapproval. "Shin Jihuk," Yushin said. "The council's deadline is 30 days. We gave you 30, and I've used them. Used them to dismantle everything your father built." Yushin's eyes swept the mansion. "Do you think dissolving the organization protects you? The council doesn't just want the Jeomjongpa, they want accountability." "For what? Saving 148 people from slavery? For breaking the code." "The code," Jihuk said, "was written by men who profited from suffering. I'm not bound by it anymore. None of us are." He stepped forward. "The Jeomjongpa no longer exists. There is no territory to claim, no operations to seize, no throne to take. It's over." Yushin's jaw worked. Behind him, his men shifted, restless, uncertain. "And if the council disagrees?" "Then the council can take it up with Commissioner Huang, who, I should mention, has a very detailed file on each of the 5 families, their operations, their contacts, their finances." Jihuk let that land. "I didn't give him that file, not yet. But I will, happily, if anyone threatens the people in this house." And then silence fell. It was long, electric, and dangerous. Yushin stared at Jihuk, and Jihuk stared back. Then Yushin looked past him, at Viviana, standing in the doorway, at the woman who was not hiding, not cowering, not running, just standing there, present, unafraid. Something flickered in Yushin's expression. Not understanding, exactly. But maybe recognition. The recognition that whatever Jihuk had become, whatever had changed in him, it was real. And it was not going away. "The council will hear about this," Yushin said. "I'm counting on it." Yushin turned. His men followed. The cars pulled away. The gate closed. Viviana exhaled, a long, shaking breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Jihuk stood very still for a moment. Then his shoulders dropped, just slightly, just enough to see. And he turned to her. "That," he said, "was the most terrified I've been in my entire life." "You didn't look terrified. I've had practice." She almost laughed. Then she did laugh. A short, sharp, relieved burst that bounced off the walls. And Jihuk, impossibly, wonderfully, laughed too. It was the first time she'd heard him truly laugh. It was low and startled, and slightly rusty, like a machine that hadn't been used in years. And it was the most beautiful sound she had ever heard. The aftermath was messy. The 5 families fractured. Without the Jeomjongpa as a central power, their alliance had no anchor. Or 2 of them, the Kang family and the Yoon family, quietly approached Commissioner Huang's office within the month, offering cooperation in exchange for reduced scrutiny. The remaining 3 retreated into their own territories and went silent. The threat didn't vanish overnight, For weeks, Taesun maintained heightened security. Jihuk hired a private protection firm, legitimate, licensed, boring, as Pilsu described it with visible disappointment, to supplement the household's safety. But gradually, the tension eased. The calls stopped. The letters stopped. The dark cars stopped appearing on the road outside the gate. And the mansion, no longer the headquarters of anything except a growing family and a cluster of startup businesses, settled into something it had never been before. Quiet. Real quiet. Not the coiled, waiting silence of a house full of secrets. The gentle, breathing quiet of a place where people actually lived. Troy moved out on a spring morning, not far, just 20 minutes away, into an apartment Kylan had helped him find near the coalition's new headquarters. He'd been offered a permanent position as the organization's outreach coordinator, working directly with freed workers to help them rebuild their lives. It was the role he'd been made for, patient, empathetic, unbreakable. "You don't have to go," Viviana said, standing in the entrance hall as he loaded his bags into Kylan's car. "There's space here." "I know." Troy smiled, a calm, certain smile. "But I need my own space now, my own walls. I've spent 2 years in rooms that weren't mine. It's time I had one that is. Iris is going to miss you. I'm 20 minutes away. She'll see me every weekend. And Wednesdays." He paused. "Jihuk and I already worked out the schedule." Viviana blinked. "You and Jihuk worked out a schedule?" "He's very organized. He made a spreadsheet." She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She did both. Troy put his hands on her shoulders. "You found something extraordinary here, Viviana. Don't feel guilty about it. Not for 1 second. I'm not. You are. I can see it. The way you look at him and then look away. Like you think happiness is something you need to earn before you're allowed to enjoy it." He shook his head. "You've already earned it. 100 times over." Iris, perched on Jihyuk's hip by the front steps, waved. "Dada! Do!" Troy waved back. His eyes were shining, but his smile didn't waver. He got in the car. Kylan pulled away. Now Viviana watched until they turned the corner. Jihuk appeared beside her. Iris reached for Viviana. She took her. "He's a good man," Jihuk said. "The best. Second best." She looked at him. "I'm joking," he said. "Mostly." Summer came like a gift. The garden, those trees his mother had planted decades ago, exploded into green. Iris, now 18 months old, discovered that flowers could be picked, and she picked every single one within her reach, presenting them to anyone who stood still long enough. Daisy's kitchen counter looked like a botanical experiment. Jihyuk's legitimate businesses were thriving. The shipping company had secured 3 major contracts. The real estate arm had broken ground on its first project, an affordable housing development on the eastern waterfront. Jihuk had designed the layout himself, and staying up late at night with blueprints and pencils, and that quiet, focused intensity that Viviana had first mistaken for coldness, and now recognized as passion. "You're building homes," she said one evening, looking over his shoulder at the plans. "That was always the idea. For people who need them. For everyone. But especially for people who need them." He tapped the drawing. "This section. I'm designing it specifically for families in transitional situations. Workers who've been displaced, single parents, people starting over. The rents will be subsidized." "Who's subsidizing them?" "I am. From the shipping revenue." "Jihuk, that's half your profit margin." "I know. It's also the entire point." She leaned against his shoulder. A year ago, when she wouldn't have done that, wouldn't have allowed herself the casual intimacy of leaning against this man like he was a fixed point in her world. But he was. He had been for a long time. "Your mother would be proud," she said. He didn't answer, but his hand found hers on the desk and held it. The trial of Jang Woo-shik ended on a Thursday in late August. Guilty. On all counts. Kylan called with the news. Then Tyson. Then Dr. Yunhee. Then Commissioner Huang himself, who said, in the most emotional Viviana had ever heard him, "It's done. Thank you, Shin." The celebration at the mansion that night was unlike anything the house had ever seen. Daisy cooked enough food for 30 people, and then invited exactly 30 people. Coalition members, legal team staff, the household crew, Troy, Kylan, Binta, Tendai, even a few of the freed workers who had become friends over the past year. Jihuk, who was not a man built for parties, stood in the corner of the garden with a glass of water and watched everyone eat. Viviana found him there. "You're hiding," she said. "I'm observing. You're hiding, and you know it." That smile, the real one, it came so easily now, still small, still slightly lopsided, but no longer rare. "Fine, I'm hiding. Parties make me uncomfortable." "You ran a criminal empire, but parties make you uncomfortable?" "Criminal empires are predictable. Parties are chaos." She laughed. Then she took his hand and pulled him, gently, firmly, into the middle of the gathering. "Doe!" Iris shrieked from Troy's arms across the garden, spotting him immediately. "Your daughter is summoning you," Viviana said. "No, she's always summoning me." "Go." He went. Troy handed Iris over, and the baby immediately grabbed his collar, because some things never change, and patted his face and said, "Do-do-do," like a tiny chant. And Jihyuk's face did that thing it always did when Iris touched him. It opened. All the walls, all the stone, all the years of armor, gone. Just a man holding a child who loved him completely. Daisy appeared beside Viviana with a plate of food. "Eat." "I'm not. Eat." "You've been running around all day, and stop staring at him like that. You'll burn a hole in his jacket." "I wasn't." "You were." Daisy handed her the plate. "I've never seen a man change the way he has, and I've never seen a woman brave enough to be the reason." Viviana took the plate. "He changed himself." "Maybe. But you gave him something to change for." That night, after the guests had left, and Daisy had shooed everyone out of her kitchen, and Iris had been put to bed after 3 stories, and one very dramatic tantrum about not wanting to stop playing. Viviana and Jihuk sat in the garden. The pond was silver in the moonlight. The trees were black shapes against the sky. The air was warm and smelled like late summer. Grass and flowers, and the faint echo of cooking spices from the kitchen. "A year ago," Viviana said, "I was a maid with a baby, and no idea how I was going to survive the next month." "A year ago," Jihuk said, "I was a man in a cage who didn't know the door was open." She turned to look at him. He turned to look at her. "I love you," she said. Simple, direct. No preamble, no qualification, no careful framing. Just the truth, despoken into the night air like a fact that had always existed and was only now being acknowledged. Ji-hyuk's breath caught. For a man who controlled rooms and negotiations and entire networks, for a man who had stared down a council of crime families without flinching, 3 words from this woman stopped him completely. "I have loved you," he said slowly, "since the day your daughter fell asleep on my chest, and I canceled a meeting I'd been planning for 3 weeks because I didn't want to wake her. That was the first day. Yes. You've loved me since the first day?" I didn't know what it was at first. I thought it was curiosity, interest, something manageable. He shook his head. It was never manageable. It was the most unmanageable thing that has ever happened to me. And I run a shipping company. She laughed, full, warm, but free. The kind of laugh that comes when you've been holding your breath for a year and you finally let go. He reached over and took her hand. And they sat there. Two people who had found each other in the most impossible circumstances, who had fought and struggled and sacrificed and chosen each other again and again through every obstacle. And they watched the moon's reflection ripple on the water. Not the end of anything. The beginning. 1 year later. The Eastern Waterfront housing development opened on a bright morning in September. Jihuk cut the ribbon, awkwardly, because he was holding Iris on one hip and she kept trying to grab the giant scissors. The crowd was a mix that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. City officials, coalition members, former syndicate employees now working legitimate jobs, the families who would be the development's first residents. Commissioner Huang was there, looking slightly less stern than usual. Kailan gave a speech. Troy gave a speech. Even Daisy said a few words, which were mostly about how everyone should eat more and worry less. Viviana stood at the edge of the crowd and watched. Her daughter, their daughter, in every way that counted, was 2 years old now. Fearless, loud, opinionated. She had her mother's eyes and her biological father's laugh, and a deep, unshakable attachment to a man who had once been the most feared person on the coast and was now arguing with a toddler about whether she could hold the ribbon-cutting scissors. "No, Iris. Yes. They're bigger than you. Yes." Troy appeared beside Viviana. "She gets that stubbornness from you. Everyone keeps saying that. Because it's true." He smiled. "The building is beautiful. He did well." He did. "And the subsidized units?" "Fully booked. There's already a waiting list." Troy nodded. His life had its own shape now. The apartment, the job, the purpose. He saw Iris 3 times a week and called every night for a bedtime story. He and Jihuk had developed a friendship that still surprised everyone who witnessed it. 2 men who by every conventional measure should have been rivals, instead becoming something closer to brothers. "I'm happy, Viviana," Troy said quietly. "I want you to know that. Not just okay. Happy." "I know. I can see it. Can you say the same?" She looked at Jihuk, who had given up on the scissors debate and was now letting Iris wear his suit jacket like a cape while the crowd took photos. "Yes," she said. "I can." That evening, back at the mansion that was no longer a headquarters or a fortress, but simply a home, with toys on the floor and drawings on the fridge, and the smell of Daisy's cooking woven into every wall. Iris sat on the study floor with her blocks. Jihuk sat beside her, helping her build a tower. Viviana stood in the doorway, watching. "Higher, Doe. It's going to fall. Higher." He added another block. The tower wobbled. Iris clapped. It fell. She laughed, that enormous, delighted, full-body laugh that only small children can produce, and immediately started rebuilding. Jihuk looked up and saw Viviana in the doorway. "She wants to build things," he said. She gets that from you. She gets everything from everyone. That's her gift." Viviana came and sat down beside them. Iris immediately crawled into her lap, grabbed a block, and handed it to Jihuk. "Build," she commanded. "Yes, ma'am." They built. Together. On the floor of a study where, not so long ago, a baby had crawled in and grabbed a stranger's jacket and refused to let go. The tower got higher. This time, it didn't fall. Outside, the trees in the garden stood tall in the evening light, planted by a woman who had loved her son enough to give him roots, even though she wouldn't be there to watch him grow. Inside, a family, unexpected, imperfect, assembled from broken pieces, and held together by something stronger than blood. Laughed together on a study floor. And somewhere in the world, a young woman packing a suitcase with shaking hands, about to cross an ocean with nothing but hope and a prayer. She would make it. She would find people worth trusting. She would find a place worth staying. She would build something worth keeping. Because that's what happens when you hold on tight enough. You find home. The end. If this story touched your heart, if you felt something while reading it, then hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications. Share this with someone who needs to hear that hope is never wasted. Every single subscribe helps us bring more stories like this one to life. Don't scroll past. Be part of this family. Subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.